High FM, 101.9 megahertz of life.
Relations between South Africa and the United States have come under increasing strain in the last couple of years. So this is driven by a number of things, and we know pretty much what they are in terms of South Africa's move towards China, Russia, Iran. We also know about US's concern about expropriation, land expropriation. So and now recently over the weekend we see that it's been intimated that maybe the CIA is involved with June 30th. These are all things, of course, that doesn't help the relationship at all. The question is, can this relationship still be mended? Werner Human is head of operations at the Solidarity Movement. Werner, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. I hope you are well. The relationship is not in a good way. If it was on Facebook, we'd say status, it's complicated. Can you tell me, can you give us a sense of how complicated it is?
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me this morning and to discuss this very important subject. The relationship at present is very complicated, but the fact remains that it doesn't need to be that way. It has been coming for quite some time. It's been coming for a number of years. You would remember the Lady R debacle. Mm-hmm. And with the second Trump administration, they are busy with a broad-based review of their trade relationships and also how they would view relationships in general. They are moving more from a bilateral form of relationship. And in last year, I think you briefly mentioned it in the introduction, that there's been 5 asks that the United States has stated and what they want a response to. What we have in South Africa, unfortunately, is that there's not that high of a regard for the value of a relationship with the U.S. Our position is, and I think that this can be stated objectively as well, that it would be highly advantageous for South Africa to have a healthy and positive relationship with the U.S. But what we've seen is that it seems like ideology and ideas is standing in the way of getting an agreement that benefits South Africa. And we think the complication that arises can still be overcome. We think that the Americans has intimated that they are still willing to discuss with government matters that are of importance. And what is required now is to think outside of the box, to address the 5 concerns directly. I think the ambassador from the United States a few weeks ago made a statement to say that there's not much developments regarding the 5 asks, but then they see on the side of foreign policy that the South African government is going closer and closer to what the United States views as their adversaries. And what the US actually states is that there should rather be a non-aligned policy, which doesn't mean there's only one relationship, and that is with the US. But the positioning of South Africa should be on such a front that it allows for multiple relationships, which includes the US. And we think on that score, there is still time to mend the relationships. And that's also the role that we are trying to play with our proposals to directly answer to the 5 asks of the United States. Because when you look at national interest, it is in our national interest to have a relationship with the US.
I find, and I know that we should take this seriously, but I really do find that sometimes our government is very, very much skin deep when it comes to these things. That it is, I mean, I know that they are doing damage. There's no doubt in my mind. I follow this very closely. But at the same time, I find they just sometimes say stupid things that aren't even meaningful. How do you separate the nonsense that they speak for maybe just optics and the things that really do damage?
I think it's important to note that firstly that the 5 asks, if we take that as a common point of departure, all of those issues are issues that can be resolved. Nothing is unresolvable, but then we find, as you say, this skin deep sort of position and view that the government takes. And I think a part of the answer lies with the role of civil society. We've become accustomed in South Africa that where government fails and it doesn't live up to the obligation that it has in terms of the Constitution as elected officials, we do pick up a larger and larger role, and we see more and more of that in the country. So we see role players not about state actors also coming into the fray. And what it can assist with is to provide a proposition that can be considered by the US, to take that propositions also on a government-to-government level, because that's the level where these discussions officially take place. And I think we should just louder and more clearly state that these obstacles can be overcome. In property rights, for example, the President has indicated in the replying affidavit of the expropriation case that there is concerns regarding the Expropriation Act that must be addressed, that he thinks is not constitutional. That's a huge matter, but that it also presents an opportunity to say what can be done to amend the act so that it goes accord with what the protection of property rights is about. And we can go on and on with the safety and rural concerns that occurs. There is practical suggestions that we've also made that can make South Africa a more safer country, and that is not controversial. So I would posit that on each of those points, all of those points can be overcome, and I think the role of civil society would become larger. And we've also seen the American ambassador last week in a meeting, and we've put a position there to say that we believe that all of this can be overcome. So I think there is a role for us all to play, but we need to also hold government to account where they make decisions that would undermine the national interest.
Why do you think? Well, let me rephrase that. Do you think that the government is taking it seriously enough? And if not, why not?
I do not think they are taking it seriously enough. I think what there is and what we sense is that we sense there is a realization amongst many of the people in government that they need a relationship with the US. I mean, the US has got about 60% of global equity in the markets, 25% of the global economy. It's our second largest trading partner in South Africa. We've got a trade surplus to the tune of about $10 billion with the US. They buy high value added exports. Do they buy from us its vehicles, its agricultural products? So there are many of them that sees the value in it. But what we really do have is we've got the mode of decision making, if I can call it that, is firstly on an ideological level and then on the national interest level. And this is the breach, this is the gap that occurs, the gap between ideology on the one side and practical national interest considerations on the other. And I think that is the thing that impedes development, because they need to first balance the political side and then secondly the economy side. And in most countries that are successful and are growing and are developing, the economy dictates what the politics is about. But unfortunately we've got the juxtaposed position saying that it's the politics that must determine the economy, and that's the big challenge that we have in the country.
That is where we leave it. Give me your thoughts, give me your reaction. 061-895-1019. What do you think that the South African government should do as a first step to mending the relationship with the United States? That was Werner Human, who is head of operations at the Solidarity Movement.